How's it going, everyone? Session here. Welcome to a Final Fantasy 14 article that we just recently got in regards to the upcoming patch of 7.35, knowing that we're going to be getting a new deep dungeon, but also the future of the rest of the expansion. So let us take a gander. FF14 Director Yoshida is ready to fix the MMO's difficulty problem starting now, as the 14 patch 3.35 dungeon person add more varied challenges to the MMORPG. We asked Yoshi where else it might fit. Now, for context, 7.3 run is like right around the corner, and so we have to wait. I think it's about like another month before we get 7.35, and so the deep dungeon Pilgrim's Traverse will be coming into the expansion come 7.35. And essentially they've made a very large change to that deep dungeon, which I think a lot of people are excited for, because long story short, you're able to modify the difficulty of a boss that will exist in deep dungeon, that is the final boss, and it's ranges its difficulty quite a lot, actually, from being a little bit harder than a savage fight, but having mechanics that are near ultimate level, that it might even insist on attracting a lot of hardcore and even world first raiders to try to get into experience. And so I think that a lot of people are really excited for that. So there's no ultimate for the upcoming patch or the of 7.31. So this is kind of like the other version, or substitute, if you will, temporarily, while they work on the ultimate that we should be getting 7.5, as it's kind of sort of been conversed. But let's continue. New FF14 Pilgrim's Traverse is set to be a landmark moment for the long-running MMORPG. Game director Naoki Yoshida introduced a feature, which will arrive in 14 patch 3.5.35 as an experiment to test a few things we want to change with 14 overall. A big part of this is finding ways to make more content appealing to a wider range of players, which he also mentioned as well, that Pilgrim's Traverse is designed to be a piece of content that is playable by anybody, but also changes itself so that it could be playable by the range of players, between like casuals to hardcore. So that way it's not just content that like everyone can just do and it doesn't change. It's actually going to be modifiable, so that it's technically multiple pieces of content, but it's under one umbrella. So I think that's the idea, and I think I like that a lot, because based off of what they explained in the live letter, there's essentially this one boss has 15 different modifications, if you want to get like technical, because of how you actually provide the difficulty modifiers to it. So it's only one concept, but theoretically it can be done 15 different ways, which is really cool. I like that a lot. So we'll see. All right. A big part of this is finding ways to make content more engaged. What else could we see this introduced? As Gamecom, we sat down with Yoshi himself to discuss the upcoming variant dungeon, Ultimate Raid, and when we'll finally see Beastmaster Limited Job, which of course is still like a pending conversation. While I wasn't able to make it a game time this year, Jamie put my most 14 questions to Yoshida at the show, including how the team plans to learn from Pilgrim's Traverse to help deliver the level of activity variety that the best MMORPGs need. Yoshida is quick to note that the team is not currently planning to implement any new kind of variable difficulty into previous content, but says it's certainly a key consideration moving forward, which I really like that, because honestly, we've had the conversation ourselves as well, where with Dawntrail especially, I think it was also present in Endwalker too, so like it's fine. But there were dungeons, right? We got like dungeons that are all required for the main quest scenario, which is fine. So having main story have its own dungeons, and then not they're not being like an alternate variation of that dungeon. People kind of sort of missed it like a little bit, and I think additionally as well, even the trials that we went through, they all have like a normal difficulty, and then they have the extreme variation. Whereas back in the day, they used to just immediately call it like the hard version, although that kind of stopped with Storm moving forward, but still, like there's a hard version and then like an extreme. So it made me want to think about the idea of them going back and providing like a normal version, which is kind of what it is now, where it's just a standard boss fight that you put yourself through. Then the hard version is like an 8-player, more challenging fight with an enrage, but it's much more lenient. And then there's the extreme, which is the current as we have it. Now, in my personal opinion, I'd like for them to take the current functionality of the extreme and turn it into a hard version, and then make the extreme version even more challenging than like the hard version could be. But it also offers a reward specific to that you could acquire, that's not available in the hard version, but it does offer like a much larger challenge. That way, again, you're widening the scope of of replayability of content while being able to just offer more rewards with less content, if you will. I mean, people might not like the idea of less content, but I think realistically, if you give people a reason to re-engage with the content, that's a lot more appealing than just doing it one time like then never again. So I would like the idea of them to go back into previous content and provide this. I think that'll be really ideal, especially for like the variant dungeon and criterion dungeon, because right now criterion dungeon, only one dungeon has a reward system that could easily be applied to the previous ones, but it doesn't. And I am expecting them to apply that into the upcoming one we're going to see in 7.4. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there. So I really, really like the idea of them going back and bringing back the difficulty into previous content. That would really appeal to me a lot, because there's just so much content that it's older and so therefore it's not engaging enough. But there should be a reason for players at the current level of like being 100 to go back and do old content if it rewards them with something that they can do at current content, if that makes sense. So okay, with patch 7.4, we are working on the next installment of the variant dungeon, which is cool. Yoshida tells a via the translator. With the changes that we are implementing in Pilgrim's Traverse, we will also be implementing similar changes based on feedback in the new variant dungeon. If you didn't catch level 88, the gist is that the difficulty starts out gentle and ramps up, with a top-end battle that you'll able to modularly tweak the challenge of by using offerings to gradually increase the enemy stats and mechanical complexity, which is what we talked about, or what I mentioned just now with regards to like Pilgrim's Traverse. The fact that you can change the boss's like stats, HP, damage wise, and like elemental like prowess and everything, but it also changes the mechanics. There's never really been a boss fight where I mean, even when you transition from like Savage to Ultimate, because again, it's not the same thing because they're technically two different pieces of content, but when you have one content, sometimes the content thing has multiple variations based off of what debuffs you might get or what the boss is doing. But the fact that you can actually modify the fight before going into the fight and get variation is very new. And this mechanical complexity is highly, highly appealing, because we got like a small taste of that with the most recent Alliance raid. I won't spoil it per se, but they mentioned as well in the live letter that you're going to be able to go through the boss or the Alliance raid multiple times, and granted the boss is the same boss, but some of the mechanics will change depending on things that happen. So if they take this mentality going forward, then you dramatically increase my interest in doing the content on a repeated level basis. So I really like this mechanical complexity stat change thing with offerings. I hope that they take this system and copy and paste it literally everywhere. That's going to be really cool. Patch 7.5 will bring the second installment of Fork Tower Raid, which has proven rather notorious. The first part is mechanically involved and requires a large player count, which is exciting if you're able to organize a high-end squad to come along, but that means that people mostly will only experience it through watching videos for now. I love a call Crescent's frantic battles, but I don't have the free time in my schedule to slide into coordinated group, raid group, and prog the fights, so Fork Tower has been a bit off the table for me. I haven't also gone into it either, so I don't have any opinion about it at the moment, but I do know that they made changes to allocate people's feedback about it, which I really respect them for that. But I will be using 7.3 patch to do Fork Tower, and then hopefully we get the opportunity, which is going to be also super exciting. So yeah. When the second Fork Tower raid arrives, Yoshida says a similar system to Pilgrim's Traverse could be a possibility. Ooh, okay. Wow, that would be really cool, actually. Okay. And adds, we are working on providing several difficulties of that content for players to enjoy, which, again, for context, there was not a variable difficulty for Fork Tower. People think that it's way too difficult, although I've heard from some people that it's not harder than like a extreme trial, or it's like on par with it, but like 48 people is 48 people, so it's like a chaotic alliance raid, if anything. So there's that. So that's really cool. So I like that. But yeah, so they did say that the 7.5 version will have at least two difficulties, so that's cool. Moving forward, it could be constantly for 14. It could be that we incorporate a stream where there is a variable difficulty, or it could be that we prepare a selection of difficulties in advance and the players can choose which difficulty they want to challenge, which is cool. This is the general direction that we've set for 14 moving forward, confirms. And because of this new direction, it could be that the overall amount of content that we implement in the game goes down, but in doing so, we hope that more players will be able to enjoy the content that we implement. Yeah, so I think this statement will concern a lot of people because of the fact that it says that the overall amount of content that we get goes down. But again, you got to think about it from the perspective of like, if the Chaotic Alliance raid modified itself so that you can get, like, instead of getting one fight, you can get 4 different fights in terms of how it operates, but the reward can increase and the difficulty can increase, then you're already turning like a single fight into 4 varying difficulties of fights, which can be appealing to those particular players. Now, obviously, if you're leaning on the more casual side, you go for the easier difficulty or the one that nets you like the best reward you can get with the least amount of effort. And then if you go for the hardcore, you take whatever is the highest difficulty, which therefore would yield the most rewards. Now, I think realistically, going for the highest is always like the ideal appeal. But it'd be cool if there was a reason to just do any of the difficulties that are available if they implement the system across the board. So I really hope that they take that into consideration as well. With ffxiv 8.0 and the next expansion still yet to be announced, Yoshida isn't ready to offer any hints there yet, although he is happy that the team is on the right road to achieving its stated objective for Dawntrail, of offering more unique fights. He says, "There's no set goal in mind for how this might evolve, but adds, it's always the case that we want to provide a unique battle experience, and I think with the response we've had, we're making good progress with that, and we will continue to put our efforts in to make the battle content unique as an player experience, or as an experience for the players." So I will say with absolute certainty that Dawntrail in terms of content and fights and visually and has been incredible. I really like it a lot. The thing is that their formula is still, they're still using the same formula where you got like your tank busters, you got your raid wides, you got like your mechanics, but they also still make their own versions, which is really, really cool. I see M7S right here, which is like a prime example of like one of the best designed fights that they've ever created, and so I'm really happy for them to put in that kind of effort. When you think about like the way how the fight actually operates itself, it's like one of the best fights that they've ever designed. So for me personally, Dawntrail has been excelling at doing the thing that it's been designed to do for the sake of their schedule and their intentions, right? They want to create unique battle experiences and create exciting fights that also kind of blend in difficulty because of what kind of chaos you might encounter, which I really enjoy that. And so I will say with certainty that they've been doing exactly that. There's only one content, in my personal opinion, where they haven't exactly it's a fun piece of content, but it didn't hit me in the way that I wish that it did, and that was the Futures Rewritten Ultimate, which I've talked about 100 times, and I won't go into context about it. But everything else, the difficulty you can ignore. But in terms of creating excitement, in terms of creating unique battle experiences, really going like a little outside of the pool of ideas to create battle content between the dungeons, these trials, and the alliance raids and the savage raids and even the normal raids, they've been hitting the nail on the head so unbelievably well, and so that makes me even more excited for the future patch content to come because of what possibilities that they've been storing up for sure. Because as somebody who did the savage raids and really just they've been 8 out of 8 so far in terms of the fun, the difficulty, the content factor, and like just the way that you can play it. I'm super excited for what raids will get in 7.4, like without question. But I think, of course, for me personally, even with all the announcements announced at the Dawntrail keynotes, the number one piece of content I've wanted the most was this deep dungeon. And not only is it because it was just a deep dungeon, but because I just, I love deep dungeon a lot. Eureka Orthos was a lot of fun. And I didn't need them to go in the direction they were going with Pilgrim's Traverse, but with what they're doing now, my want for that dungeon has gone even way higher than I thought it would be at. So now I'm even more excited for doing Pilgrim's Traverse. So I can't wait for that content to come out. I'm gonna be in that thing like all the time. So we'll see. But yeah. Let's see. As for us to come in and post Dawntrail patches, Yoshida gives us a little clear schedule with a few key confirmations. The next raid is going to be implemented in patch 7.4, which of course is the Arcadian heavyweight tier, so M9 through 12 Savage and normal, cool. And probably in patch 7.5 there'll be a new ultimate. Probably. that word probably is like a little concerning, but I'm pretty sure we're getting it, so look, it's fine. I think that there will also be quite a unique experience. So players who really like that tackle high end battle concept should be able to really enjoy that. Okay, yeah, I think that it. I mean, that word doesn't really allocate the sentence, but like whatever. Those were already pretty expected, but one question that's long been on players' lips is when we'll get to play the second limited job of the Beastmaster, which of course there's been zero insight except for the fact that it's coming. So we haven't heard or seen anything about it. I was thinking they would do like a teaser trailer for it in this patch or the next patch, but it may actually just be waited until we get to the 7.5 patch. So let's continue. For 7.4, we are quite into the development and we are making good progress on this. Yoshida says for patch 7.5, the limited job Beastmaster is going to be implemented, and also the new ultimate braid. Because of this, it is extremely hard on the development team. The battle team is working hard on the development, is really at a loss, which I understand too. And so for 8.0, we haven't even announced anything. So I would say hypothetically, if we are working on it, it is smooth, which is actually kind of cool because if you're not aware, sorry, the commercials look weird. The 8.0 expansion's design functionality is to take the feedback provided from Dawntrail and just take that formula and method and move forward, right? But for 8.0, there is supposed to be like this massive job rework. It's unclear as to what that entails because, of course, there is zero insight as to what that might be. But because we're aware of this has been like their focus, I think it's hopeful and I think it's a good feeling to be excited because Dawntrail has been excelling very well at creating the fun and engaging battle content that we've been kind of told to looking out for, which they also mentioned even during Endwalker's patches that they've already been like again creating this roadmap for what's to come with Dawntrail and also 8.0. And so I think that because Dawntrail has been doing such a great job in terms of the battle content and how fun all the content is, I'm very hopeful and excited for 8.0, not only for the battle content to come for that extension, but even how the job designs will be like reworked and working around that. Now, the problem, of course, is that if this whole job rework thing is going to come into places in 8.0, it's got to be able to be functional if they're going to decouple the things that we think they're going to do, like, you know, like the 2-minute meta thing and whatever, that it works for all of the older content also. And I'd like to think that with the job designs in mind, they are going to take that into consideration, especially because for the whole like offerings difficulty modifier thing, if they do just to go back and look at old content, they'll probably think about job design in the process as well. So again, fingers crossed that they do exactly that. All right. Also arriving in October is the crossover with Monster Hunter Wilds, which honestly looks so good, which will bring the Guardian Arc-Veil to the MMO. Yoshida confirms that the idea came about when we went drinking with Capcom's Yuya Tokuda and Kaname Fujioka-san from the Monster Hunter team during Gamescom last year. However, he notes that they had to wait until Wilds launch and that the 14 team had time to play it and figure out how the collaboration would work, estimating that the development process ended up taking almost 5 months. Okay. Yoshida reflects on the Rathalos fight implemented in Stormblood. Final Fantasy 14 is not an action game, so the development of that battle was quite difficult. He says Arc-Veil has offered some new opportunities. We have put a lot of work and detail into this, and the development process has been very intricate. We'll get more details in September, but he does hint. One thing I can say is don't pay attention to the cast bar, but look at the monster's movement. Something that certainly caught players out with the last crossover. Yeah, so that's the fun thing too is normally in Savage Raiding and Ultimates and Trials and whatnot, like you can kind of pre-position in terms of mechanics that are going to come from the boss. And, you know, 14's rating design is kind of like a dance where, you know, what you do, where you go, you kind of just follow the steps in like the rhythm and the groove of the funky beat. However, Monster Hunter did not do that. Monster Hunter is like a tank. A tank was not necessary to actually hold aggro from the monster. The monster kind of just did its own thing. But tank was still necessary because there's like a moment where an ad comes around and you have to actually tank that ad, and that kind of further like determines the experiences of the fight. So I am heavily expecting this fight to be like not designed like Rathalos, but with the same concept in mind with Rathalos, that they'll be able to create like a fun and engaging content as a result. Which, that being said, if they, because the Rathalos fight was really fun and like really well received. If this fight also gets really well received, I'd like for them to consider the opportunity of creating some type of battle content where it's similar to Monster Hunter, where the boss does attacks and stuff, but there's no particular order, and it's not a dance. And like a less danced base fight in this game, I think would be heavily appealing to a lot of players, where you have to pay attention on where the boss is standing and where the boss is going, and maintaining uptime and like damage allocations and aggro and all these things become like a little bit like more difficult to actually apply, but still offers a challenge. Because again, I'm really looking forward to this collaboration ever since it got announced. And also, I played Monster Hunter Wilds. I loved it so much. It was so much fun. And so I think realistically, there is a way that despite 14 not being an action game, it can take the battle content that exists in Wilds and actually incorporate it into 14 as an MMORPG. So we'll have to wait and see. And vice versa with Monster Hunter 2. I'm really looking forward to seeing Omega get implemented in Wilds. I think that Omega will, I mean, hopefully there is a starboard larboard and that messes people up. The Behemoth fight was incredible from World, and so I think that they'll succeed as well, just as much in being able to create like a fun fight for Wild players to fight some Omega. So we'll see that when we get there. In closing, Yoshida really emphasizes his desire for players to get in and try Pilgrim's Traverse when patch 7.35 hits. I want to get all the feedback from players, he says, whether you're a deep dungeon veteran, a complete newcomer, a hardcore solo enthusiast, or a savage and ultimate raider who might normally skip the feature. He wants to hear what you think of the changes. So, if you think about returning to check out what's new, the 14 free login campaign, great time to do so. True and real. If you're getting together to take on Arkfeld, grab the best gaming heads in 2025. All right, so and then where do you think the 8.8 story will take us? We're going to Mirror City entirely. All right, well, I mean, I can answer those questions, I think, in a sense. Okay, so I do think it's really, really important for the community to take the time and opportunity to go through Pilgrim's Traverse, not because it's new content or anything in particular, but because they're trying to create a new design philosophy moving forward, and they're using the deep dungeon. So if you're a, like he says, right, if you're like a deep dungeon veteran, if you're like a newcomer, if you do only dungeons, if you only do crafting, if you do hardcore content, savage raiding, ultimates, trials, extremes, dungeons, whatever, you should just do the content. And obviously, providing feedback about things that you like and what you don't like, I think is of course like helpful, So it's okay if you're just not a person who, even if you think these dungeons are sleepy and boring and you want to like take a nap afterwards, like by all means like do so. But I would still like think about whether or not it's at least fun enough for you to enjoy, or if you like the philosophy design behind like the content. So I know for sure that as a deep dungeon veteran and a solo enthusiast, I do love solo deep dungeons. I'm literally currently in the process of doing Heaven on High solo for fun, like just no reason, just for fun. And also love me some Savage and Ultimate rating. Like I said, it's my most anticipated content of the entire expansion. Like I said, they've been doing an absolutely incredible job with the ultimate like fun factor. The story is different, but the fun factor of Fru is a lot of fun. The Savage Raids here has been incredible. The Alliance raids have been super, super good. Extreme Trials are super fun. And the dungeons have been really engaging, and I've really enjoyed all the content so far showcased throughout Dawntrail. So honestly, I'm equally as excited for Deep Dungeon as well as the Arkfeld collaboration. And last thing, I think in terms of 8.0 story, I don't want to spoil anything particularly about the story, but I'm really under the impression that we're going to be visiting a familiar place, but will eventually take us to a new location where there will be more questions and answers. Now, again, that's very open-ended, and it's like, you can do that with anything. But again, if you know the ending of 7.3 story, then which respectfully, I would say refrain from spoiling anything. But again, super exciting, so I can't wait. But that's this article. All in all, I'm still a firm believer in the direction that Dawntrail's been going, and they've been succeeding at everything that we've been getting so far. So again, I think I'm going to still continue to look forward to the content to come. Fianna, the moon is right around the corner. I loved going to Sinus Ardorum. The moon was so much fun to craft and gather, and so I will be doing Fianna as well in terms of that new moon and get the new tools there as well. We're also going to be getting the relic patch update as well, so we're going to get the glowy weapon, so it'll hopefully look really cool. And and the grind is also fun because I've wanted to go back to Cold Crescent for like a while and also push into Fork Tower. So if the next patch offers that opportunity for me with 7.31, I'm definitely looking forward to that as well. And then of course, Deep Dungeon and Arkfield Collaboration is right around the corner. So I mean, we'll see more about that when we get there. So that's all this is for me today with the article. So I hope you guys enjoy. Please do check out the article. It's from PC Games, and then of course, I hope you guys had a fantastic time reading with me. And of course, I'll see you guys in the future. So thank you guys all for watching, and I'll see you next time.